doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, gracias everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, and the love and support everyone shares with me. From the heart, I appreciate every one of you. Also, do please help the channel by liking, sharing, subscribing, and hyping the video. Gracias. Well, to get into a topic real fast tonight, I disculpen if I sound beat in. You guys know you could say I'm fresh out, right? So I'm kind of tired a little bit. But anyhow, today I want to touch on something that, just going through YouTube for a minute or two, I seen it was a topic on hand, right? And without mentioning any marcas or whatever, right? I want to touch on the topic, which it relates around, on a level fours, being an active campolero, you having other races hold for you, deal with you, and point blank, that's a lie. That will never happen. You know, First and foremost, at least in my era, these were grounds to politic and have you whacked. Second of all, the higher ups were never allow it. But allow me to put it into a little bit of perspective and a personal tip, right? Well, I'll take you back to the streets when I was on the streets, right? As I stated before, my family always been doing their thing, I'm mocoso, but I still like making feria, for numerous reasons. Oakland was a spot where to make some feria at, at least when it came to Chiva. And nevertheless, throughout this time in Oakland, I met a good individual. His name is James, right? He was a brother from Eastside Oakland. Real cool peoples. Me already having done time in YA and everything myself as him, we were well aware of that don't matter how much, you know, we appreciated each other, there's limits, right? For obvious reasons. And it's basically because when things hit the fan, you can't let nobody have that upper hand on you or the ranfla, right? It's just common sense. It works both ways. Nevertheless, James, I sincerely say he was one of the toughest individuals I did things with on the street. He took care of his business. I went from SR to Oakland and did whatever, and he had his reach right in Oakland, Hayward, Fresno, Stockton, them areas, and everything was always neat, clean, right? It was tan tan, you know. You go ahead and enjoy yours, and I'll enjoy mine. Nothing in betweens. You guys get what I'm trying to say. Nevertheless, when in time, like I mentioned in a past story in Oakland, things will take an ugly turn in Oakland, right? At least for myself. So I distanced myself from Oakland, and then things unfolded themselves, and we went our separate ways. I made it clear if he still wanted material, it was there, but it wasn't going to be permitted for me to go into Oakland no more, right? Like I stayed for my personal reasons. Had nothing to do with him. Nevertheless, again, he was a good individual. So fast forwarding to Ironwood, right? And he's there, and even though in Ironwood I was holding the Jardín Fruterco and everything, yes, it's normal. If people come on here and tell you with people you have friendships on the streets, you're not gonna walk a lab and converse. That's a lie. You're not gonna be that disrespectful to somebody that was true to you, right? So we did take that lap and we did discuss, in reality, he had a lot more solid people inside on a 4 yard than I felt I had with my gente. And I'm not trying to minimize nobody, right? It's just, at this time, I was still trying to excuse me, learn, the wiggles inside of moving dulce, right? So I had already had a couple mishaps, right? That I put myself in that spot where, well, I had to come to up to the celly and leave that cell cracked and have to run up in there and collect, right? If you guys get it. And of course, doing that walk, he told me like, look, fool, you know how I'm a servant, right? I seen there's struggles. There ain't gonna be no struggles here. I'll do everything, bring it in. You just get it to my people on the street. But you see, this was a time in my life where I didn't go against the green. It didn't matter how much I respected you, right? It was still everything was as clear as water, point blank. So I respectfully declined it. Told him I appreciate it, but it was it's part of doing time, right? And that's dealing with your own gente, weaving or cleaning the vatos with palabra amongst you to those that are just willing to hurt you, right? Because there's a lot of that. Nevertheless, without getting too much into that glorifying of moving dulce inside, those that know me inside would tell you, I'm not gonna be the one here telling you that, oh, I was constantly doing it now. There's always third parties, right? But see what happened. I told this story before about that vato from 12th Street. That thought he was a rapper and then caused a big riot with uh with the brothers right on the yard, and it went up bad. And I'm not gonna say I hesitated, right? Because I didn't. I honestly was trying to pinpoint a mark and avoid, right? Of course, everybody was going to get tipped up, either us, them, wherever. But certain things you got to wiggle around, for whatever history. Nevertheless, I remember we were in 3 block, and as we're in C section, right? I'm running over there, and everybody has their thing, right? Again, it ain't a level 1 or 2. And as I'm running, I try to avoid homeboy, right? James, and he didn't hesitate. You know what I mean? And I'm talking about we made some feria. I got to meet his people. He got to meet my peoples. It was always beyond that, right? But it was always clear. And when I try to, I'm not gonna say sidewind, but I try to guide myself to a different brother. I seen he didn't hesitate. He didn't stop. So we met, and we took care of business. The rest, it don't really matter, right? we both got touched up. But it became an issue. I'll I'll explain how. You see, when we went back to the hole, we went back there for mutual fight, right? And back there were certain individuals trying to say me and homeboy had something going, that comadre stuff, people trying to earn their stuff by their mouth, right? Not by their actions. And nevertheless, it became a big issue. Remember, at this time, there was three pilis back there, and I'll speak about Terco. When it hit Terco, he wanted to know the truth. You know, were me and homeboy dealing on the yard? Was he collecting fatty off it? Which it was what he was worried about, right? His angle on it, which it was all clarified. Homeboy James said, when business came down to business, we took care of business. We knew each other from the streets, but we never had anything inside because we knew where we stood, right? Which was true, but it just goes to show how easily, you could sit here and say, well, I have this jardín for so and so, or I have this, and at the same time come out of left field and say something like, oh, I was paying a brother to hold my material for me. That ain't your material, homeboy. You know, that's the Pili's material. So you go to have another raise hold a Pili's material. What if that individual sits on it, leaves with it? What's your explanation going to be? Because it's not permitted, point blank. The part that I feel shady about is, I guess Sapo from San Pedro said, let's test waters. I want you to send word. He's going to see your the homeboy needs to get hit. It's part of my scandalous ways. I was part of poison. I never denied it. And we both knew where we were at. So I had to put that palabra out there at sea yard. Of course, I was the person sending it wasn't coming from me, right? If you guys get it. But anyways, the point of the story is not only you put your neighborhood at the gate, friendships you built that you never see that dividing line w- will be there from the gate. The minute you hit the system, it's like I know a lot of camaradas that grew up with brothers, right? And we're not talking about that running around the same street, you know, lumping each other up. We're talking about growing up with them, going over to their auntie's house, sitting down, having dinner, whatever. All that ends. And more than likely, you're going to get put in a spot. I'll end this with this. If you think you're going to go inside and BS them from protecting your own, you're never going to do that. Remember, you're going to be utilized to get as close as you can to the mark. I'll let everyone read into that. So, again, a lot of people might say I'm speaking on my, but the facts is, I met a lot of homies, believe me, that mission calls on one, right? But from the back history, it don't matter what you are, you know, loyalty is loyalty. But with this said, I hope I made sense, everyone. I will put something else better for you. Just thought I would touch on something that's relevant right now. Thank you so much for you guys' prayers, for your amazing help, and just with your words. With this, I'll send my love. Stay true to yourself and loyal to your loved ones.
This is what we start. We always